All right, good morning, everybody. It's Friday, April 29th, 2022, closing out the month of April. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, I'm going to go ahead and review yesterday as quick as I can, and then we're going to get into this morning. So, let's go back to the open yesterday. And I want to talk about basically right out of the open here. We came up, and I talked about this in my meetup last night. We came up right into the orange power level, and I told you guys at the moment that this was basically that first opportunity if you wanted to try the orange power level. If it was going to hold, we were expecting lower, and sure enough, got a nice bearish divergence on the second test there and started selling off. And we came down, and then I tried a counter trend here right off of the close of the day before. Ended up giving me a pretty nice push back up for just over 10 points, and then came down to the bottom end and broke below our first minor eye level, and then called some shorts on the back end of that. That then led to, I believe, just about another 10 to 12 point or 11 point sell off. And then they came back up and retested the 200 and failed from there. And then called another trade as we came down into our first major eye level, which was, a very important level to hold for the bullish case. We came down and broke below it and held the back end of the fast moving average again. So when we came up into the 200, called another short there. And as you can see, we held the 200, came down, and even though we were kind of breaking through the 4200 area, there seemed to be a major battle here. Came back to 4213, held it almost to the tick, and went ahead and continued to chug lower. Notice we bounced right at 50% of the previous day to the tick, and then eventually got below the 4200 zone once again, held the back end of the fast moving average, and started to sell off. And then we came down to this 4182.50 happened to be a major swing that we were watching going all the way back. If I can even, well, this is a very short time frame, but this level right here goes all the way back to basically a resistance zone that we highlighted a few from, I believe, all the way back at the end of February going into March. I don't remember the date exactly. I want to say it was mid March. So we marked that level. I ended up just changing it to this minor eye level scheme on it. Whatever you use, it doesn't matter. Yesterday was a dotted line. Anyway, came down into that level, and that was the low of the morning. So we held that and then came back up. Had a lot of trouble trying to get through VWAP, which is a typical thing to see. But you could see we kept holding 4213, trying to push, and the battle led to a pullback. Um, and then we still had trouble to getting through VWAP, and then finally got this breakthrough and came all the way up. Got through 4256 major level, pulled back to it, continued going. Notice the retracement level that we put on the charts yesterday is exactly where the market came up. Got two failures and then eventually went ahead and broke through, right? So a lot of trouble at that retracement level. That's why I told you we want to be aware of these higher time frame retracements because a lot of times they can act as very strong support and resistance. So had some trouble there, and then you can see it just chopped around right at that very specific zone that we were watching, and then eventually came up, held the top end of the level, and went ahead and continued to chug here. And going into the end of the day, we got a little bit of wonkiness. It was a pretty strong rally up. We failed 2 points in front of 06 quarter, which was our first target to the upside if we started breaking higher. And then I believe it got just a little bit wonky here at the end of the day. Kind of shot down and then shot up and then shot back down. So it was a little funky here, but notice right between 84, and this basically the top zone, and then this zone right where the major eye level is, and back and forth between it. So that's where it brings us here to the overnight session. We came down, held the back end of 50% of the day before, and came up, and again came right into that retracement level. The overnight high so far is that major retracement level that we marked yesterday. So we came into it, could not get through it in the overnight session, and as you can see, we're now pulling back and holding the back end of this 200 moving average, and we're now below VWAP on the 512 tick chart. So looking bearish. Let's go ahead and jump up to the high time frames and take a look at what they're saying here. So on the daily, this little section that we're stuck in, that we basically have been chopping around for the last weekend, is a very dangerous area. It's a lot of chop, a lot of indecision going on. And if you look at this choppiness right here, it's exactly what we were doing last time the market came down to this area, just kind of back and forth until finally we got an impulsive move to the upside. So over here, what I'd say is basically from the 38 retrace of this smaller leg down to the low, it's going to be an area of messiness until we can get some type of break either to the upside or to the downside here. On the daily, I don't think there's really much to talk about other than we're obviously trading within yesterday's range and within the weekly range still. So be aware of that. Probably don't want to get too crazy within that zone right there. So let's get into our 4-hour look at the major structure zones. Again, notice we came up just in front of our 4313 major zone there. We pulled back and now we're attempting to sell off down and get through 4200 and then back down through 4167 and the low from this week. On the 4-hour, there's no other levels that I want to talk about here other than the major 50% retrace and major 61.8 retrace of the whole sell-off here has not been checked just yet. So if we do end up getting some type of bullish follow through here on Friday, that zone up there, again, right around 43.2450, our major eye level, is going to be very important this morning for the bulls to get through. So don't forget about that zone that we've been emphasizing for the last few days. And then if that breaks, again, the 61.8 area where there's some good major swings in the market and some confluence with some other things. Let's go into our 60-minute now and start getting into the nitty-gritty of what levels we're dealing with this morning. So just to scrutinize what's above the range and below the range, let's do that first, and then we'll look at all this stuff, again, that we're pulling back into, which is a whole bunch of chop for the last week. So there's going to be a shitload of levels in here that are all very relevant. So let's look above and see, basically it's all laid out for us. We talked about the everything up here for the entire week. All the levels up above us we've been talking about, we just haven't made it up there to test them. So let's take a look, and I'll just quickly go through it because it should be a review now for you since we've been talking about them probably for 4 days now. So again, that 43.2450 zone right there is packed with a lot of important levels. So let me extend this out to the 30th so we have it shaded here for this morning. I think that's going to be really important. Once that breaks in, I think it's also kind of interesting to note here that we came up and failed right at the high from April 26th. I believe that was Tuesday's high, came right up into it and failed. So kind of interesting to note. Anyway, 43.2450, and this is a little pocket between 20 and let's say 25. And again, 48 is up above. We have this swing back here that hasn't been tested just yet. Right here where we made the major low back on April 17th going into the 18th. I don't know if that was Globex or something, but that major low right there has not been tested. We came down, we got a major push out of there, and then once we broke through, we have not been back to test it. Do not ignore that level. That could very well be the high of the day if we end up getting some type of massive push. So 55.50 is that level, and then we're up into this little pocket, and this pocket is still relevant here. So let me bring this out to the 30th so it covers today. And we have, so basically right around our minor eye level at 61 to the major retracement level at 66, that little 5-point pocket right there. And you can see we've also got that major swing. Any further from there, we've got 81 quarter, and then these two fibs are very close together here. So we got those, and then the major eye level at 43.97. I don't think we're going up there. It just doesn't make sense. The market has continued, and I talked about this yesterday, has continued to attempt to rally higher, only for the bears to come in and continue to swat it back down. So, as far as some type of 100-point breakout here to the upside or 160-point push, I really doubt anything like that's going to happen. So anything beyond 4,400, again, another 160 points up, I don't know if it's even worth spending time on. And we've already talked about all these levels up here because we haven't been back, obviously, to test them just yet. So I think that's enough about the top end. Let's look at what's below this weekly range in case we do get some type of a really strong sell-off. That would be a greater expectation for the market to sell off 200 points this morning rather than to rally 200 points. Again, anything's possible. And I could sit here and make arguments for both sides, get you some data, get you some charts, and make it all make sense. So we'll just have to see what the market ends up doing, right? So let's look at what we have below here. So again, our major eye level at 42 quarter is going to be important. If we do get this strong sell-off this morning, that's what the bears are going to have to get through. And if they do, we're then looking for that next chug down to the next major zone down here just around 4,000. 4,004, there's a reason that the major level is kind of pinpointed at that specific that level to the tick. But remember, with the major levels, it's a little bit of leeway, a little bit higher on the error bars. And we do have the minor level at 97 and I think something very specific sitting there right at 4,005. So this little pocket of about plus or minus 5 points, to me, looks fairly interesting if we get down there. Of course, there are levels in the way. So if the market ends up getting through 42, the larger target is all the way down to 4,000, but we do have 4108, 4080, 4042, and 4023 in the way. And these are fairly spaced out, so there's plenty of money to be made between these levels if they end up chopping around within there. So that's what we have below us. That's another over 200 points down. Where are we right now? We're at 4240, 250 points all the way down to 4,000. I think we've got this covered down below. If it starts selling off that aggressively, then it doesn't even matter what levels we have below us. We just want to be in the market short, riding the roller coaster down. So now let's get into all this garbage that we're pulling back into. It is quite a clusterfuck down here. In fact, yesterday I think I told you, everyone in the room, that this was our danger zone or something. We said, watch out for the danger zone right here. All this garbage back and forth. And again, if you zoom out and go all the way back to when we were down here earlier, it's been quite a chop fest in that part of the chart. So it is what it is. It's a whole bunch of levels really close together. So let me see if I can exaggerate. I hate sometimes the way Ninja charts work. See if we can exaggerate this a little bit and get into here. So here we are. We've got the whole leg itself all the way up, and we talked about this yesterday about how we draw these kind of pre-market fibs. We've got the whole leg all the way up to the high of the overnight, high of yesterday, because we haven't broken it and pushed above that in the overnight session. So up to 0350 there. And the retracements, notice the 38 is right in this little pocket here that I have highlighted. Okay, the 61 is right at basically 4200, our major eye level. And then for the 50%, I put one of our lines across. So I'm going to get rid of the fibs. Don't need them on there. That's the 50% of this whole leg up. Don't want to ignore it. And again, interestingly, the larger time frame retracement to the upside is what held here in the overnight session, and it held yesterday for quite a while there before it broke through. So this morning, this is our next major fib that we're pulling back into. And then we have the smaller fib, which is the low of yesterday, 82.50, that I updated to a minor eye level up to the high. And that fib retracement, 38 lines up again in that same pocket. The 50% is sitting here, obviously, at 50% of the previous day, right where we have our major eye level at 42.40. And then the 61.8, I went ahead and put the same line across, just a smaller size. So we know that's the minor 50% retrace level. So this is what we have. And notice where we're bouncing, right around the 50% retrace of the yesterday's, or 61.8's retrace of yesterday's price action. And then we have the larger one here at 42.20. So let me get rid of this trend line because it's probably no longer a help. We've got those two levels below us right now. Our minor eye level 42.13, which despite all the chop has seemed to continue to work to the tick so many times. So don't want to ignore that that's sitting there. And then it's right back to 4200. And then we have, again, the low of yesterday is 41.82.50. The minor eye level up at 89 above it. And then a little bit deeper, this is the level 67.50 that we said yesterday, and I believe the day before, if we break below this, then I think it's a clean shot all the way back to the lows of the week and that major eye level at 41.42.50. So this morning, I know it's a lot of levels, but look at all the chop we're dealing with. We've got all of these right here. And then if 41.42 quarter breaks and the low of the week breaks, we've already covered everything that we have down below. So that's basically it for the morning. Again, the basic scheme of things, getting above our orange power level, getting above the high of the overnight session, and getting above yesterday's high. All good clues for the bulls here, but we have to keep in mind the context of the market and the fact that every time the bulls try to rip things, it just keeps getting swatted back down. So don't think there's anything else to add to the picture. So I guess we'll just jump down to the short time frames here and get ready for the open. So for those watching out on YouTube and the internet, have a great weekend. We will be back here obviously bright and early on Monday morning. So have a great weekend and we'll see you then.